call the regular meeting to order. You're already up for pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, you all have a copy of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, is there any, you want to do the public hearing first for the basic code before we do public comment then? Do you want to go exactly as we got it on order here?
Yes.
Okay. How far are we gonna go? Okay, so first we're gonna do this public hearing. How are you gonna run that? I mean, 'cause then we run into on A then to adopt it. So how much discussion do you wanna do on this during the public hearing?
I would say you could see if anyone from the public wants to comment. We could respond to their comments directly, and then the rest of the
And
discussion.
then go into regular business? So, right now we're having the public hearing on the basic code update. Anybody make comments? That's just kinda weird. That just felt weird. Okay. So do you wanna go into discussing any of the updates on there, Chris, now, or do you wanna do this part of the regular meeting?
I would say we can do it during the regular meeting.
Okay. So this was basically just a formality, this
Right.
6 o'clock thing, 'cause I think everybody here's for a regular meeting, right? Dan, Marlene, you guys got anything on the basic code? Jay's here for something later on there. Okay, so we'll close the public hearing. Public comment period. Does anybody got anything for the public comment period that's not already on the agenda? Okay. B, back to the basic code.
Okay.
All those formalities, back to the
Well-
basic code.
The planning commission did go over some of the sections of the basic code that are related to zoning. The rest of the basic code update, planning commission does not have to review. It's other rules for the city. And about every 3 or 4 years, the publisher of our basic code that we use does an update to make sure everything's up to par with state law. And so they issue a new update, which now we're looking at their 2014 update. And in addition to what they've changed just for state law and other minor changes, the planning commission has talked about some new language pertaining to garages. This is in the zoning, garages and garages and dwelling units. And in the current basic code and the proposed, it's all the same. And the proposed code, there's not a definition for garage. So we've had a lot of questions at City Hall, what's allowed for a garage? And I think it would probably work best for everyone if that was defined. In our old zoning that we had before we adopted the basic code, we did have garage defined. And it was defined as a 3-car garage, as a maximum size. Well, doesn't give dimensions, so that's kind of hard to say, well, one person's 3-car garage is different than somebody else's. So at the planning commission level, we talked about actually putting a maximum square foot on the garage. So right now what's proposed is 1,200 square foot maximum, or 125% of the footprint of the house, whichever is less. So if you have a really small house, if someone just puts up kind of a shoebox house, you can't put up a monster garage. It has to be somewhat in proportion. So I think this is good language. I guess the question is 1,200 square foot a good size? Some 3-car garages are actually a little bigger than that. We just got an application, one was 1,260. So I don't know if you want to bump that up. And then the other
But
thing.
isn't there's something in the regular zoning that between the house and the garage, it can't take up X
Well-
amount of percentage of the lot, right?
Correct. It can't be over 50% of hard surface.
So.
Hard surface, though.
I'd say, so would that control that? 'Cause I mean, if somebody had, what if somebody has 2 lots?
Right.
If
then
they
you'd
have 2 full lots,
Well, this would be, like, an average lot is about 8,000 square feet. So if you have a house that's, let's say, 2,000, I mean, be real generous, and then you have a 1,200 square foot garage, you're still under that 50%. So that 50% really comes into play to make sure somebody doesn't pave their whole lot, because it's any hard surface, it's not just building. So that's to make sure it's, you know, not completely impervious, and then all the water would run on the neighbor. So that's what that 50% is after. It is kind of a catch-all for these other things too, for the size of house and garage, if they really got big. But, I think the two things here to consider are the 1,200 square foot, you know, do you wanna bump that up a little? And then the other regulation here, it does say, under private garage, which is in the residential areas, it would be for passenger vehicles and trucks not exceeding 12,000 pounds gross weight. So that's basically saying they can't have their commercial vehicles there, which makes sense in a residential, but are we gonna be able to enforce that? And how many people already have commercial vehicles that they store there? And is that acceptable?
I'd rather see them stored inside
Right. if
than
they-
outside.
Right. Very good point. So if they were allowed in the garage, then that's a good thing, then they're parked inside.
I do think we should bump that square footage up though, because more people,
That's
I
something,
mean,
let's get
people are
30 by 40,
building.
right?
Right.
Yeah, people are
That's
building
not
bigger
that
and
big of a
bigger
garage.
garages all the
30 by
time.
40, that's pretty big.
Yeah,
I think mine's like 24 by 34.
I
Mine's
mean,
not
I'd
that
rather
big.
have that than have a couple of smaller storage sheds. I'd rather have the, I mean, I think it looks nicer if you've got one big garage
With
versus,
storage.
with storage versus
Built in.
a bunch of little,
Essentially 35 by 35 is the footprint of my house. It's pretty big. If you were to put parked cars in it.
And the
Well, like
intent
I
would
said,
be,
I
this would be the maximum for all garages, so if somebody perhaps wanted to build two smaller garages detached, this total would be for those combined.
What's your garage?
I thought it was like 24 by 34.
yeah, see, yours is a good sized two-car garage and you've got good storage in there besides.
Not a
You
lot.
know, well, no, not a lot, but I mean, you have extra
But
storage
that's only
on the
800.
end.
Square feet, this is allowing an extra,
Yeah,
400 square feet.
Two-thirds of that size.
you're only at 2/3 the max right now.
And then the other factor is the existing, or the older lots in town are smaller than the
Yeah.
new lots, so I don't know that we wanna get into having two different ones. The one that's proposed is for one of the vacant lots out at Prairie Meadows, and it's a 30 by 42 garage, which is a pretty decent sized three-car garage. It's got some storage on each side and an extra 10-foot deep, so.
It's amazing how many garages are not even used to store,
Yeah,
put their
cars.
cars in.
And you still have the limiting factor of the 125% of the
Right.
footprint of the house.
Yeah.
So it's not like everyone could build a 1,300 square foot.
Well,
Right.
so I'm thinking, because you do have other things
Other
in place to
limitations, right.
control it, so you're not
Yeah.
gonna have these big monstrosity
On the small lots.
on
On
a
a
small lot
residential.
with a small house, you're
Right.
not gonna have this huge garage, because you've got other things that control
Mhm.
the size.
So Cheryl, I heard you recommend 1,300. and
I wouldn't
then-
go any less than 1,300, I don't think.
Is this recommendation from EDA? I mean, is this,
It's a recommendation from Planning Commission, but
From
it can
Planning
be
Commission.
changed. The 1,200 was from Planning Commission.
Yep.
Why'd the step up 100 square feet?
Well, if you've got somebody else already wanting to build a larger garage, and you're gonna see that all the time, they're always wanting bigger garages. And like I said, I think that would be a whole lot nicer looking than having an extra small storage shed on a property, and
Not-
especially in a newer
Not to
development area.
mention, if they have the size of a house to support that size of a garage, and that size of a lot to support that size of the garage, that size of
Why
the garage is
not?
gonna be a greater value as far as taxable property.
Right, higher taxes, yeah.
And I think at the Planning Commission, we were focusing more so on the older lots, and I don't know.
The
that
smaller
we-
residential lots
Right,
in
I don't know that
within the
we-
city.
So we
Yeah.
could either have two different regulations for the different
No, I
size
think we
lots,
just want one.
or if we
Yeah, because
have.
we've got the
right.
other 125% of the
Right.
footprint.
And I think that's where the
Protecting
change
that.
came in, Tony, is that then this would, if it got bumped up, it would cover both the new lots and the older lots. under one regulation, which would be simpler to enforce.
I say, 'cause as long as you've got something in there to control the size of it for someone with a smaller house and with the smaller lots, right?
Yeah, there is, yeah.
Since you're on planning and zoning, we'll let you make, you almost did that in a motion, don't you, since you got it on here, or do we just change it and not accept it as
Well,
is?
we will, assuming everything, we come up with recommendations on everything, you can adopt the entire basic code update at one time. So we just need to make note on what you're approving.
Is everybody else
I think
okay
these-
with that?
I
changing
think
it
these
to 13?
monstrosity garages though can be a negative on the
Yeah.
value of the house. I mean, I look at houses that are, I look at two houses across the street from me, and there's absolutely no yard in either one.
But
And me
they
as a.
can't do that now though, right, with the 50% and the
Oh,
125%
I bet
size,
they'd
right?
probably both fit in that still.
Or maybe you take that 125% and decrease that.
I
So
just
they'd need to
personally
have
would be, just as a, if I was coming in with a family, I would be like, where's my yard? I don't have a yard. I would be uninterested in that house.
See, a lot of home buyers are interested in, one of their main things, the questions are kitchen, bathroom, and garage. Oftentimes when they're looking, as far as value.
What would be the process if we leave it at 12 and then someone came in and wants that 1260? Is
They
there,
can't.
Can't.
They can't.
there's
No
no
variance.
variance,
There's no
there's no.
variance, no.
Okay.
It's
There's
just
no
like,
reason for the
kinda, I
variance
think you
then.
brought up, she said it, what if they had two lots, right? But you can't build a garage on a lot in town, so you can't just say, I'm gonna build a garage on this lot, so if someone had two lots, they couldn't even do that, they have to build a house, and then they can build a garage.
There you go.
So, that even, we have those things in place, and, the issue is, like Matt says, there's a problem with these monstrosity garages, the garage mahal issue. And then do you want your community as a whole to look like a brownstone community? Which is, there's no grass, there's no nothing, it's just house upon house upon house upon house and whatever in the back, and then there's nothing, there's no green space. We're a small town, people aren't moving here to live amongst the sidewalks, they wanna have some lawn, they wanna have some grass. So, I mean, a 1,200 square foot garage to me seems like it's got plenty of room on it, but, if you're talking about a bigger lot, that's what it is.
Because the lots out in Prairie are bigger than the ones in the city, right?
Yeah, quite a bit.
I don't know how many exceptions there are in town. For example, I have a 3-acre and a 1-acre lot. I can only build it, I could build a large thing, but apparently according to this, I can only build on either of those. I can only put a
Well, and I think-
1,200 garage on mine.
Right, and I think that the houses, the newer houses that are built are gonna have the attached garage. So they're gonna be limited width-wise, how big their garage can be.
Yeah, because they still have setbacks that they have to abide by.
Correct.
Does this
So,
take into account though if it's an attached garage, or is this just separate garage?
Either or.
Either one.
I think this is gonna, I don't think you're gonna have issues with 1,200 square foot garages in the new development necessarily. Because they're gonna want, everybody wants an attached, or they want an attached
But somebody's
garage.
already submitted plans for bigger.
Someone's always gonna.
Which means, people are looking at. something
But
bigger.
there's always gonna be someone that could potentially come to a town and say, well, I want a bigger garage than that.
But by limiting that though, and if they've got the space, by limiting it, you're limiting the value then also.
How much green space do they have remaining?
Limit the 50% rule. I'm gonna say the house is probably 1,700 square feet. 16 or 1,700. And there is extra room in that example. Extra above and beyond 3 cars. So it is a generous size. I don't think it's
So,
crazy big, but in that case,
so we're looking at changing this number for one particular
No,
There's
just
some-
overall
No,
because of
just
Prairie
overall.
Meadows, because the size of the lots
Lots
out there.
are
Yeah,
larger.
but I mean, we're getting somebody that's coming through and saying they want a garage that's how big?
60.
1260, so in a year, somebody else builds and they're gonna want one even bigger, so we're just gonna keep upping this?
I agree,
guess
we
don't-
already have an ordinance in place though, at that point in time. You know, right now, we don't have a defined definition.
And technically, because that other one, the permit application's been submitted, this adoption of this ordinance will not be official until it's published. So chances are that application will go through.
Go through anyway,
Because
yeah.
it's
but-
grandfathered or return on use.
And we can change this again at a later date if everyone's more comfortable with keeping it in the 1200 and we find out we're having more issues with that, then we could always change it again.
I'm just thinking more and more people, if they've got the space, want their garages, not for only their vehicles, but then put shops in there, they, you know, they like their wood shops or
Their lawnmowers, their toys.
their
and
lawnmowers,
whatever.
people are getting riding lawnmowers, they're getting more and more things that don't fit in smaller garages. And if they've got the space, if they meet the space constraint, I don't understand what the problem is. Because they can't go 2 stories, it's gotta stay 1 story, right? I thought that was somewhere where it's gotta be 1 story, they can't go 2 stories anymore, right?
Right, in the garages.
Well, if there's a height limit, I don't know.
Well, there's a height
that-
limit, right,
Yeah.
There's
yeah.
a height limit.
yeah.
So they could still do a barn-style garage that they could put
Have
a-
storage up above, I
Above.
believe so.
Attic trusses or
Yeah,
something, which would
yeah,
be a,
above the- yeah.
So what's your guys' opposition to taking the size up?
I think 1,200 square feet is plenty, you know, if you
Why?
just did the math. Oh, just based on the
I
other
mean,
garage.
to you it's plenty, but maybe to the guy that's building
It
it.
just it just depends where you put it.
Yeah.
I mean, I could give you a handful of houses in town.
But their lots aren't big enough, and their houses
Right.
aren't
and it
big enough
looks-
to support
looks
it.
terrible.
But then it would be greater than the 125%, so they wouldn't be able to build
And they
it,
wouldn't meet
even
the
if they wanted
setback,
to.
they wouldn't meet setbacks.
They wouldn't
either,
make
probably.
setbacks, they wouldn't make the 125%.
Because those lots are
footprint.
much smaller than the Prairie Meadow.
I guess if
So
you
even
look
if we set that at
And we
like
don't wanna
4,000, they wouldn't be able to
Yeah.
because their lot wouldn't, in the size of their house, they wouldn't be able
I
to
guess I
because
see
of
what you're
the
saying.
other.
So
Because the other
if they were to-
controls- 'cause the
if
other
they were to
controls in
have-
it.
For example, if they were to have something like a lot and a half, it would allow them to put something a little bit bigger on, and it wouldn't take up the entire.
Yeah, like mine,
So-
I have a lot and a third, my garage could be
Right.
bigger, and I'd still make the setbacks, and I'd still make everything, because I have a lot and a third. But my neighbor has 2/3 of a lot, where she wouldn't be able to, because she wouldn't meet the setbacks, she couldn't even have the size garage that I have, because she wouldn't make the setbacks
Or the 50%.
on it, or the 50%.
And I think we're seeing some development out there now. I don't think we want to discourage that in any
Well,
way.
that's what I'm
Yes.
thinking, you know, if we're discouraging and we're trying to hold people back going, oh, we want you to build here, but, you know, you can only have a little house with a little garage, and, you know, we're gonna tell
And,
you.
1,200 is a good size, I guess. If you look at what a stall would be, a garage door is, 8 foot wide, 9 foot wide, and a car is 20, even if you call that 10, and they're maximum 20 foot long, that's, 200 square foot per car, times 3, that's 600. So everything else is like extra space for getting in and out of the doors, and the shop and everything you're talking
Well,
about.
So not
especially
only that,
the-
but storing stuff in there too.
Well, the thing is too,
versus
is out in
sitting
Prairie,
outside.
you can't put a basement out in Prairie. So
Good
you gotta,
point.
you gotta
Yeah.
consider that the people that
They
are
need
building out in
storage
Prairie
space.
are gonna have storage space, because there's no basement, so where are you gonna store? You store in your garage.
Good point.
And we encourage people to keep that stuff out of their yards and off the streets and whatever. This way it's.
I don't wanna
Additional
discourage
storage
people
space
from
for that.
building. Like I say, I'm looking at the tax side of it as, the garage is a little bit bigger, that property has a little more value. If the house is big enough to substantiate that,
That size.
I mean, that has
garage.
to be a good sized house. I mean, that's the thing, is too, that has to be a good sized house to support a 1,260-foot,
Garage.
right?
Yeah.
Right, well, probably about 1,000 square foot, because 125% times that. So 1,000 square foot is big, like if you had a 2-story. But if it's just a 1-story, it's not that big of a house. So in most cases, it's the number you pick, the 1,200 or the 1,300, that's gonna control. Unless somebody had a really small house, like 600 square feet or something, then they're gonna be limited by the 125%. Or you can change the 125%. This is proposed.
You haven't weighed in.
No, I think, like I said, you don't wanna stop people from building. That's one thing we don't wanna do. And I think I'm speaking for myself, I'm not a professional builder, knowing what people are building garages now at, what sizes they're building, you know, so I don't like to put a number on something, not being knowledgeable on what it is. Maybe that's what people are building now, is a 1,260-foot garage. So, I mean, I hate to put a number on that I'm not real familiar with what people are building. But we wanna keep that from the backyards, getting these, which we already have, you know. I understand that point too. So we wanna keep that down, so we don't have these, basically two houses, you know, is what we have on some of these lots with their garages. So we have to put something in place. So maybe that's the number, if that's what, I don't know where that number came from, or who, you know, if that's just kind of a
How
standard
did you guys come
size,
up
or,
with that?
It is based on some other cities and,
okay.
actually, I think the city of Cannon Falls, or one of the cities, had 1,500 square feet as their maximum. So it was probably on the low end for an ultimate max.
Cannon Falls has way different building
Yeah,
opportunities.
and
there.
that's, yeah, some cities don't even reference it this way, so it's really hard to just compare. Some cities actually did it based on the lot size, a percentage of the lot, which is tricky. I think it has
But
more to
again,
do
if
with the
you're
house.
talking the difference between 1,200 or 1,300, that's only a 10 by 10 piece on that garage or shed. There ain't nobody gonna walk down the street and notice that difference. So if the real hang-up is going to 1,300, just go to 1,300.
But you're gonna know the difference in storage
Inside.
space.
Yeah, you will.
What's that?
But I said, but you'd know the difference in storage space if you knew,
Right,
say,
yeah,
storage
but
space.
The average guy walking down the street's not gonna notice.
Yeah, your lawnmowers and all that stuff would easily fit in, you know, that.
And I think now if you're gonna take the expense to build a garage, you know, nowadays, most people got 2-3 car, you're gonna build a 3-car garage if you have the room. And you're gonna think, well, I wanna store my mower or whatever inside, so you can see where I can,
Well, if that's, in hindsight, I would've made mine bigger.
Exactly.
I don't think mine's big enough.
yeah, I
would've
know what,
made
you
mine
never
bigger.
have enough room, you know? I don't think anybody feels they have enough room probably in their garage, but if you're gonna go through the expense and the time to do it, you're gonna build something that's gonna hold people just have more cars and toys now than they had.
Like I say, and you know, guys have shops and,
Yes.
so where are we at? If it was up to me, I'd bump it up to 1,400.
I make a motion to increase it to 1,300 square feet, make the rest of the ordinance the same.
Leave in the 12,000 pound
1,200.
commercial vehicle? No,
Oh,
for
I'm
the,
sorry.
for the weight, yeah. Or take that out, because like you're saying, Cheryl, you wanna encourage them, if they
I
had
don't
something
even
like
know
that, to
what-
park in the garage.
We're not gonna
What's
go
an
check
example
and
of
what
12,000
12,000 pounds
pound
is, you
vehicle?
know what I
Well,
mean? We're
like a
not,
Suburban is 9,000 or?
Yeah.
It isn't super big like
I
you
guess-
think compared to some of the vehicles you have today, but it's gonna make it commercial.
Yeah, and I think
Like
the
a-
definition, I don't know if it's MinDOT or somewhere, I mean, commercial vehicle starts at the 12,000, so any passenger vehicle, Suburban, even a 350 pickup truck, I think was under 10,000 or about there. But I'm guessing there are cases in town where somebody does bring their work vehicle home, or might have, I don't know if you guys know any examples, but,
Leave it there, right in front of my house.
yeah, do you want it parked on the street, or?
right, I guess I would,
No,
I'll
like-
change my
It
motion
doesn't matter, he
to,
doesn't park a vehicle in his garage.
to remove the not to exceed 12,000 pounds gross weight and to add the square feet for the garage, a maximum of 1,300 square feet.
And that part was not from planning commission, that came from a definition I got from prior, so.
You have an actual motion out there now then?
Yes, we do.
Do I second that?
Can you repeat exactly what that was, Cheryl? Your motion?
On the ordinance here,
Mhm.
removing the not to exceed 12,000 pounds gross weight
Okay.
and extend or increase the 1,200, or from 1,200 to 1,300 square feet on the garage, full square footage.
I'll second it.
Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. One
Okay.
down.
Okay, well,
That only
And
took
this is-
25 minutes to do that one, Chris.
Good discussion.
well, these two sections are really the new language, so the rest of it should go quicker, but,
We're doing peddlers now?
not quite. We're still on lot requirements. So, for residential, for the lot requirements, our old zoning, before we adopted the basic code, was very clear. It said one dwelling structure per parcel, which would eliminate any confusion about whether you can have a second living quarters either in a garage or build a second house or anything like that. So that would clear that up. The other three on the bottom here are that, any dwelling unit, or no dwelling unit shall be less than 20 feet at its narrowest. So that's making sure that it's, a stick-built house in most cases in residential, and that they should be placed on a permanent foundation, and that they should have a pitched roof.
So let me ask a question then, just because I want to clarify, just because I know the question will come up. As Tony said, so if somebody's got two lots, like out in Prairie, some of the people are buying two lots, does it mean only one dwelling structure per parcel? Does that mean only dwelling structures can be built on a parcel, or only one residential on a parcel? Can a person build a garage on a parcel, or is that limiting it so they can't? Can they have their garage
So you could build a
on
house
this
on one parcel
parcel
and a
and their
garage
house
on
on
the
this
other.
parcel?
If that was proposed, I would have them go to the county and combine the two parcels into one parcel.
Okay,
Pretty
they can
easy
do that?
process. to do.
Okay.
Yeah, if they wanna, you're saying if they wanna build a garage over on
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
other
so they
area.
want, a bigger lot, so they buy two of them because they want a bigger lot, so then they just get them
Right,
combined?
and
Okay,
we
okay.
would,
We don't have any say in that, and whether someone can,
Well, they're still limited to that 1,300
oh,
square.
oh, no,
foot.
I'm talking about just making it one parcel.
I'm just saying though, what if they do buy two, because there's some of the folks
Yeah.
out there that have two, what if they want to build a garage on the other one?
Yeah. Like
I don't
said,
think
you
there's
can
much
just call the
expense
county.
going to the county to
There is
combine
no
the
expense.
parcels.
None.
Because otherwise, if they remain two parcels and that person lived there with the house and the garage, it'd be easier for them to just sell off the parcel with the garage. And unfortunately, when those transactions happen, they don't need the city's permission for a real estate transaction. So by us requiring before we give the building permit that they combine the parcels, that would prevent that.
And we don't have, that was my question, we don't have any say whether someone can combine two lots. I mean, if we have a subdivision or whatever out there, and we say, okay, we've got 20 lots, and someone says, well, I'm gonna buy these two, and now we're going down to 19, do we have any control to say, no, we're not allowing that out there, or is that just a county thing they could just do?
If you purchase two lots, you can't control them turning it into one parcel. If they request that from the county.
That's what I'm saying, I
Yeah,
mean.
we don't have any control over that.
Unless there was some, like in Prairie Meadows, if there was something real specific in the covenants.
That's
We
what I'm
have,
thinking.
our zonings has a minimum lot size. I suppose covenants could have a maximum to ensure more lots within the development.
Mhm.
Some of that gets, I'd have to look into it, it gets trickier to enforce, and we'd have to change the covenants and go through that process.
I'm just asking the general question, so that if we were to, I can't even think of a problem, but if there was a problem, can we say anything? Does the county consult with us? Do they check covenants and say, oh, no, we can't do that here because they're saying these lots have to stay this way for the covenants or whatever? Or they can just say, yep, they're two, now they're one.
Right, as long as they meet the criteria for the county, and I have it in my office, she sent it to me, that it has to be under the same ownership, and a few other things, and then the county will do that for them, so.
So is that what the E1 is saying, is only a house can be built on that? Or where does it say it, that you can't put a garage on a lot? Or do we need to clarify that? Because that is just saying only one dwelling structure is allowed, meaning you can't put two houses on there, but it's not saying that you can't put a garage on
There's a
there.
different part of the ordinance that refers to.
Is there a
having
different,
garage
that's what I
without
want, is there a
Well-
different, is there a different part that addresses that?
Yes,
Because it
Somewhere?
came
Okay,
up,
okay.
it came up in another meeting we had where someone said that about having garage on a lot, you say, well, and I can't remember, if Randy, if you were there at the time, it was Randy Steinfeld said, that's the ordinance, you can't just build a garage on a lot. You
So
have to
if
build
there's
a house.
another piece, then we're fine. I just didn't know if this was the only
Right.
sentence
Yeah, what
addressing
the
it, or
other
if there was
piece-
another piece to the
It's in the
ordinance.
permitted use for residential district, so it says a permitted use is a dwelling. And the only place it references a garage is under accessory use. So an accessory use is secondary to a principal use. So it's not real clear, it's knowing how zoning is written.
But as long as it's worded someplace else, then I'm fine. I just didn't know if this was the only way, only place that it was
Right.
worded, so then that's
Right.
fine.
I mean, it would be nice sometimes to just say it very clear, so then anybody reading it understands that.
Mhm.
And I guess we could even add that in here, in that E1.
So this isn't spelled out then in that other part? Where
No.
you're talking, okay, okay.
No, it's sort of an assumed that by a permitted use, it allows a dwelling unit. It doesn't talk about allowing two structures on a parcel, but it's not real clear, so this clears it up.
Okay.
Basically, you can't have, your Uncle Fred living out in the garage.
Correct, and it's been that way ever since we've adopted the basic code. It's, the permitted use has been,
Not anymore.
In the olden days.
Okay, so,
if everyone's okay with the rest of that language, I guess we can move on to some of the other sections.
mhm.
Okay. Okay, so that had to do with the zoning, and then the other proposed language is in a section on peddlers, solicitors, and transient merchants. This is a section that's already in the basic code, and what the basic code template says is that if you want to license these peddlers, solicitors, and transient merchants, you need to adopt a special resolution that says you're gonna enact licensing for them. I don't know that that happened when you adopted the basic code last time, so I'm not recommending we do that. I mean, a whole nother licensing process, I don't think is needed. I think what would be helpful is to regulate it in a little bit different way. Because the licensing would, let's say for, the solicitors, or, it'd give us, if they did come in, it'd give us the chance to run a background check. If it's a food vendor, a mobile food truck, it would give us the chance to make sure we got a copy of their Department of Health license. It would give us a chance to check all those things, just so we didn't have anybody showing up on any weekend setting up in town, because then we'd have a license and we'd have to go through that process. Another way to do it would just be to say, to look at what Houston, how it operates now, and when do we have, transient merchants would be like somebody setting up a truck to sell something. And agriculture is exempt, in case anyone was wondering, so if somebody's selling, farmer's market type stuff, that's exempt. But if somebody set up shop to sell trinkets,